Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Alex Bridge-Mohan, and I'm the Research Associate at CCEI. With us today is our honored guest, Will Farmer, and I won't do any more introductions for Will. I'll let him take it away for himself. So go ahead, Will. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining the call. This is a topic that I really like to talk about for a couple of reasons. One, these are sort of lessons that I continue to use every day. I learned these in the military, in the Air Force. And these are things that you can just apply to everyday management of people and managing relationships with people. So I'm going to run through a lot of this stuff. Some of it might be familiar to you. Some of it might be new. Some of it might be old. But hopefully we'll get through it, and I have some time at the end for some questions. So the agenda is talk a little bit about who I am and my background, give you a little bit of insight of how I apply what we call like the Air Force tier system for rank, the rank structure, to how I apply that to my team, even when I'm doing new hiring or just collaboration with peers. Talk a little bit about leadership styles. And then types of power. Power is very important. So, the way you look at it is you have a preferred style, and then you have some power that goes along with it. That kind of shapes your influence, which we'll see. What I've learned in the military as well as a decision-making process is what we call like an OODA loop, and we'll see how that plays out. Especially in your everyday life, when you go to a new organization, this is something that I find extremely important to do. And then we're just going to cover a high level of those adaptive skills and how you take those to the workplace. They originated for me in the military, but they transfer over to make sure that I'm being a good team member, a good manager, and a good leader. Then I'll open it up for some questions. So who am I? I'm Will Farmer. I'm from Detroit, Michigan originally. I went in the Air Force a long time ago. I won't say how long ago, but I served 22 years. 18 of that was overseas. I spent 2 years at the beginning of my career at Fort Meade, and then I ended my career at the same place at Fort Meade, partially because I went in the Air Force Intel. And so for signals intelligence, NSA is the combat support agency that supports that career field for the Air Force. So I ended up at the Air Force Cryptologic Office. Those 18 years overseas were spent in England, Germany, and Okinawa, Japan. For England, I was there 3 times. I was there twice as a intel analyst for ground and satellite comms, and then went back to aircrew duty there. So I got, ground, surveillance coming from satellites in the sky, and then actually got to deploy on an aircraft, the one you see in the picture there. Okinawa was straight aircrew, and then Germany was a ground site for satellite comms. Have over 1,000 combat hours, those in Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Oman, supporting a lot of different operations, some actually in the Balkans as well. Helped establish the Air Force Cyber Enlisted Force. Back when we didn't have an Air Force Cyber Command, we were asked to create one, and we couldn't increase the manpower to do that. So I helped some of my peer senior enlisted leaders establish like what would be a plan for the Air Force to go forward, and the staff, the enlisted force for cyber. Once I retired, that was actually one of my last big things. Once I retired, I went to work at NSA at Cyber Command as a Joint Ops Manager, 24/7 operations. We did everything from fusion, which is finding out which bad guys are targeting our good guys, countermeasures, how to prevent the bad guys from attacking our good guys, and net defense when we find out that bad guys are actually attacking us, what we can do to increase our defenses on that. Left there, went to the Pentagon. Back then was called ITA. It's now called JSP, as the Deputy Program Manager for a contract, 125 plus cyber professionals over 5 different locations in the National Capital Region. We did everything from continuous monitoring, software assurance, penetration tests, net defense, vulnerability management, the whole 9. I'm very proud of the work we did down there at the Pentagon. And then I started doing a little bit more freelance cybersecurity consulting, still with DoD clients, a lot of private sector work, some global companies you probably have ran across but didn't know, like they're global companies, some in the finance, e-commerce business, worked for some hedge funds for a while. And then I did some work with Fortune 500 companies like medical field, web host providers, things like that. Went to UConn, got my MBA, and then decided, you know what, I kind of want to go back to private sector, and partially because of what we're going to talk about here today. And that's just my style and my preference of engaging with people and managing people. I'm more of a people manager. And as a small business consultant, obviously you have to, do sales and things like that. And, I'm just something that I don't prefer to do. So I went back to cybersecurity in the private sector. I was an InfoSec director at a company called Room, and now I'm the cybersecurity director, is called head of threat detection and response at Xerox, where I've been there now for going about 10 months. I have my undergraduate in strategic leadership, and I did my MBA class of 21 at UConn. So that's me. All right, so just a quick survey. How many people believe leaders are born, and how many people believe leaders are made? I'm already giving you the breakout, so you can probably see it on your screen. All right, well, let's cut to the chase. So research suggests that leadership is 30% genetic. That's some people are already born with a predisposed notion to be certain ways, or to lead, or just have a different personality type. When people, if you look at it as an example, a piano prodigy, they're not born knowing how to just play a piano. They have that genetic makeup that they're predisposed to it, but you have to teach them the craft over time, and then they become sort of experts in their field. Same thing with math. If you see a mathematical genius, well, they weren't born that way. They had to kind of learn a lot of that stuff on the way. Leadership is no different. And so the experience that I gained through being in the military was that learned process. My personality type already sort of established that these are things that I want to do, that I want to grow and develop. And so it just made that learning curve a little bit easier for me. And everybody has their sort of area of expertise, or their what they want to pursue. All right, so in the Air Force, we have what's called like the enlisted rank tier. And how I look at that, still today, I will tell people all the time, my most favorite rank was this one right here, called the technical sergeant, or what we call like E6. And that's the bridge between being a leader, a true leader, or senior non-commissioned officer, and still being able to be part of, your peer group with the other NCOs. And that's kind of, the breakaway once you leave tech sergeant and become a senior NCO. And we used to have the saying at the different schools, once you become a senior NCO, you become the them, right? So we always at the junior ranks talk about, they make us do this, they tell us to do that. When you become a senior NCO, just like in any other organization where you see that alignment, you eventually become the them that they're talking about. So at that entry level, what I equate the airman tier to is non-supervisory roles, some education. Your folks may come in with a high school diploma and associate's degree, and they may have some initial foundational certifications. So when I'm hiring for a level 1 or level 2 person, I kind of align them to that rank in my mind. And the reason that's important is because it's a different type of approach with somebody that's at that entry level. So in the military, I won't go over this part again, but we use this model called situational leadership. And I saw in one of the previous CCEI talks, I think Matt covered that in one of his discussions. And so I won't cover that again here. But the situational leadership model tells us that for most people in this level, at this rank level, you really have to just, you have to tell them what to do. They really don't know. Right? So you have to show them the way and lead them the way. Once you get out of that, you go to your senior analyst, mid-level manager level, which is what I would consider the NCO tier. Now they're ready to supervise. They can lead a small team, maybe need a little bit of coaching from somebody that's a little senior on how to manage that team. Resource management may come into play at a very, very small level. And those are your folks that come in at with an undergrad. They may have a bachelor's degree in something, or some advanced certifications. At this point, they're really developing their specialized skills. At least in my area, I look at whether or not they have some more advanced certifications in cybersecurity, whether it's penetration testing, incident handling, incident response, vulnerability management related certifications. And so those are your mid-level folks that can do the job with little oversight. You can sort of delegate things to them, and they can essentially get things done. Maybe some coaching, but at this level, you should be able to begin to delegate things. And then once you get to the senior NCO tier, which is kind of where I retired as a senior master sergeant, those are your folks that are supervising large teams. They can all be local, they can be remote at this point. You're the director of programs, or even when you get to the higher level rank as a E9, as a chief, you can aspire to be a VP of a company or a level. Those are folks that are leading medium and large teams in an organization. That's what you would call your superintendent level. Normally they have a graduate degree, whether it's a master's in something, an MBA, or PhD on the civilian side. And at this point, you're no longer really developing your specialized skills. You're leading more into leadership developing. You're managing teams. You're focused on the business area of your expertise. And so the one thing I like to sort of like equate this to is if you look at two pyramids that, one is on its tip and the other is on the, sort of like the longer side. And so at the junior ranks here, you're not involved in management at all. But as soon as you start going up, then your footprint in these entry level things starts to become much, much smaller, and you lose a little bit of context on what that entry level person is supposed to be doing. And that's by design. That's by design. So you kind of don't want to be in what we call like being the chili of a level 1 or level 2 person. At that point, you want to build trust in the organization and trust your mid levels that they're going to make sure that those entry levels are doing the right thing. But you build that up over time. And that's when we get into your leadership style. So your leadership style is essentially what you feel comfortable, where you normally feel comfortable being in terms of your personality type. In the military, though, what we've found is that at any given time, you may actually need to call or drop on any one of these. So you have to have perspective on when I need to be authoritative, when do I need to delegate, when do I need to participate. It's not a one and done sort of fits all sort of approach. And so when you are in those positions where you can become transformative, what you're really doing is you're taking charge, you're giving the people, exactly what they need. You help chart the future. You're managing change. You're leading from a people perspective, being more outward looking. Sometimes you may have to drop down and delegate things because you have to get things done. Here, when we have a cybersecurity incident, I have to delegate things to the different team members. I have to constantly ask them, how is this going? What's happening here? And my boss, the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, he does the same thing. He delegates things to me. He'll ask me questions, and it just rolls from there. On other times, when you become an authoritative use that as your leadership style, you're really just speaking from being an authority in your field of knowledge. That's when you can really inspire people. You can become mentors. People will come to you. They look at you as somebody that really knows exactly what they need in that moment. And people will come to you and seek out different advice. They'll ask you to participate in events where you have large impact. That's the come with me sort of approach. Transactional is one of those where you're really talking to your team members or even your peers about certain things that have to happen on a certain time. This is a rewards and incentives type of style. At times you may need this. For instance, if you're getting towards the end of year and you need people to do their end of year evaluation, it's a routine. It happens every year. If you don't get your evaluation turned in on time, there may be some repercussions. It could be financial, it could be personnel related, could have any sort of impact, but it's sort of structured. In the participative format, that's when, say, for instance, if you have a group of team members and you kind of want to involve them in the decision-making process. If you start a new project and you say to the team members, hey, I've not looked at this tool before. Which sort of tools are you guys experiencing? And let's just have a conversation about it. And you want them to participate in the decision-making process. It's open communication. You're not making a decision. You're listening. You're gathering information. And then in the servant leadership style, which has become much, much more popular nowadays, it's actually looking at the needs of others first. That's focusing on building relationships. It's more of an empowering sort of leadership style where you're taking the power away from yourself and you're empowering others with that. And we're going to see the different types of power in a second. But servant leadership is becoming more and more popular because it's much more rewarding to an individual's persona when they feel like they're helping other people. And that helping other people is based on what we're going to talk about next, which are the different types of power. So power and leadership is one of these things that we really don't consider unless we're feeling the impact of somebody else's power. And when we talk about power, again, in the military, we use what's called situational leadership. And in some situations, I may have to use legitimate power because I said so. And then sometimes I might have to use coercive power. If you keep showing up late to work, this is going to happen. So, you want to use that, the coercive, as a last resort. We're going to talk about why in a second. But the reward power, it usually comes with leaders when they reach those management positions, and they can actually offer something in return for carrying out a task. Hey, team, we finished this project, 2 weeks ahead of schedule. We can save money, and ultimately that may affect the bonus or something. It's a reward power. If you show me you can actually manage, these 2 people on this project, then I'll go ahead and, make you a supervisor, which means more money, right? Things like that. The expert power is one of these things that I think when you become more and more technical, and specifically business and sort of like healthcare and things like that, you have a deep knowledge of a certain subject. And people come to you for your expertise on certain things. This type of power, to effectively use this type of power, you have to be a humble person, because this can actually elevate a person's view of themselves, right? They can actually start thinking, well, everybody's coming to me. So you have to have a little bit of humility with this expert power. The other thing with expert power is when people exhibit this power and they're constantly being asked for things, it almost creates like a single point of failure for an organization. And so you have to use that expert power very judiciously, responsibly, because, if you don't control that, the ego that goes along with the expert power, then, obviously you can have a negative impact on the organization and a negative viewpoint of how people view you. Referent power, we'll talk about that last. We already just covered coercive power. Information power is the sort of like the gatekeeper. For instance, if you're an executive admin, you have information power. I need to know when the boss is going to be here. Oh, let me check his calendar, right? They have the information. They know exactly when you need to set up a meeting. Hey, when are we going to get that funding approved? So somebody, maybe works in procurement or works in your organization, and they have information that you don't necessarily know, but you have to go to them. Again, this is one of those that comes with a little bit of humility. I'll say that word a couple of times, a little bit of humility to use. But we all have a little bit of these in our everyday lives. We all have these types of power. The connection power is one where we talk about networking, right? So, I don't know who can help you with that, but hey, let me connect you with this person over here. LinkedIn is a connection power type of platform, if you think about it. People make introductions on LinkedIn all the time. They have connection power. They can connect you with a recruiter. They can connect you with a potential sales lead. They can connect you with, a potential job opportunity with information, or just a resource for learning, for instance. Now, referent power is the power that's earned. This is the one most leaders should aspire to attain and develop. And here's the reason why. I call it the MVP of power. It's the most valuable power. This is the one that you can't be given because of your title, right? Because I'm the head of threat detection and response, that doesn't mean I have referent power. I have to earn it with my team members. They have to look at me and say, you know what? We'll use this reward power judiciously. He uses his expert power judiciously. He doesn't use coercive power. He knows how to get. Okay, now we've elevated to referent power because that's something that people recognize in you. That can't be given. That has to be earned. I put in there as integrity based because, as I mentioned before, the humility and using these powers actually demonstrates a little bit of integrity. It's going to grow over time. And that's one of those things. I have another reference in this book I read called 40 Laws of Power. And it says, protect your reputation with your life. Once you get that referent power, you need to protect that with your life, because once it's lost, it's hard to earn back. All right. I do want to cover this one, but I'm going to skip over this. This is just power in an entrepreneurial context. And this is the types of power that business, even entrepreneurs face every day. Coercion power is, if you want to register, if you want to do business here, you need to register for this website, or you need to make sure you have these legal documents. Persuasion power, if you're trying to pitch your business to someone, you need to persuade them that you have a good idea. You need to use some persuasion to say, hey, I'm making the right decisions along the way. Why don't you invest in my business? And authority power means that you have, again, we already talked about, being that person that has the authoritative sort of leadership style. This is basically saying, hey, you're an authority in this. You've persuaded me, right? So you have charisma. You can talk about your craft. You can talk about your business idea with a little bit of authority. All right, so why does it matter? This really shapes the influence you have every day. Everyday influence on people. They're going to look at your decision making. They're going to look at your leadership style. They're going to look, are you a good communicator? Do you convey information? Do you seek first to understand, then be understood? Another quote from Covey. Are you paying attention to your team's needs, and are you charting a course for your team's success? All right, so we talk about the decision-making process, and I like this process because it really highlights for me the things that I do when I join an organization. I literally do this. When I joined Xerox, the CISO said to me, "Will, it's gonna take you 2 years before you even know what Xerox environment looks like." And he's not joking about that. It takes a long time. So I'm in the observation period at that point, right? So I'm observing the team. I'm making some observations. I'm trying to figure out like what's going on, who are the key players. And then once I do that, then I orient myself to like the organization. Then I say, okay, here's where I need to fit in. Let me look at what I have now. Let me see if there's anything I need to tweak, make any course corrections here, make some more connections there. And then I sort of like analyze everything I've just learned about the organization. And then once I do that, I then determine the course of action. Okay, team, here's going to be our daily cadence when we meet. Here's our meeting style every day. Here's how we're going to have some structure. And then again, then I implement that. I talk to the team. Does this work for everybody? Yep. Are we going to be on that call every day at this time? Yep, you get buy-in. And so I do that with a lot of things. If it's a new project, I need to see like, hey, what's going on here? Where do I fit in? Here are my actions. And then I carry out those actions. And the loop just repeats itself as you go through your cycle. All right. So adaptive military skills for the civilian world. I won't go through all of this, but I'll just touch on a couple of these. Team cohesion is very important. Your leadership style will determine how well your team meshes together. You can be the type of boss that's always delegating things. It's not going to work. You can be the boss and then that's sort of like called an armchair supervisor, right? I'll just sit back and tell everybody to do everything. No, you can't. You have to be engaged with your team. You have to be resilient, because in today's business environment, even for entrepreneurs, sometimes you are going to be faced with challenges. You're going to have to be able to bounce back and say, you know what, just let me change course. Let me adapt to this new information I have now and just keep moving on. For cross-cultural competence, we are starting to see more and more that we are global companies or global workforces. I may work with somebody that's in India, and I may work with somebody that's in California in the same time zone, and on the same call rather. So what that means is I have to be mindful of the cultural differences. I have to be mindful of the social distance between us and those sorts of things. So you have to have competence there. But the last one, mission focus. cannot lose sight of establishing goals and objectives for your team and leading those goals and initiatives with whatever style fits for you. And this is the learn thing. So over time, you will have to learn how to do these things to fine tune your craft and your leadership ability. All right, so I'll leave a few minutes for some closing remarks. I just thought I'd leave a picture here of, that my journey. First picture is elephant cage, and then you have some satellite sites, and then you have the aircraft I flew on, and that was literally my last flight. They water you down with the fire truck hose, so you don't have to fly anymore. But want to leave a few minutes for any questions, closing remarks, feedback.
Yeah, feel free to use the chat to type in any questions you have. And while we're waiting for a question or two, Will, I have one of my own. So you spoke about the MVP of power.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the MVP of leadership style, in your opinion?
I can't answer that. You have to ask somebody else, right? I feel like this is one of those areas where you have to be humble at how people see you. You have to open yourself up for critical feedback. I ask all the time, how do you think I'm doing? And so I open myself up for that. And so I think I'm constantly earning it is the short answer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, feel free to type in any questions on the meeting chat. If not, we can probably call it here on time. We'll give it another minute.
Yeah, feel free to ask any question. Can be related to military, good time, bad time. Tell me a time when, I don't know if anybody recognizes or not, but I'll go back here to the first one. But did anybody recognize the initials of my name?
Yeah, Will, we know the story about it. Prem here.
Hey, Prem.
Hi. Yeah,
hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. How you been?
Good. How are you?
One of my cohorts right there.
Yes.
So tell us a story.
Oh, the WTF story. Oh, I'm sorry, Prem, you have a question.
No. You raised the question around your initial, so yeah. I'll let you.
Well, Commander saw me initial his comments on a performance feedback report once as my acknowledgement. What I do with all performance feedback reports, I always put my initials to say I read it and I saw it. And so he had a enlisted performance report that had WTF next to every one of his comments. And he kind of didn't like that. So he called me to his office for tongue lashing until I explained to him that my initials of my name are WTF. And I actually only use that to acknowledge that I read his feedback, his comments.
That's a pretty funny story.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess we can call it here. So I'd like to thank our guest, Will Farmer, for being here with us today. And thank you to everyone in the audience for listening in. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Did we want to just plug the next conversation?
Yeah, that hasn't been determined yet, Will. So we'll have to leave that open. Yeah.
Okay.
No, Alex, let's just let them know that we have something coming up on the 12th. So Will, if you want to throw that up there, that would be great.
Oh, we did. Oh,
all
yeah.
right.
Apologize.
Share screen one more time. All right, you guys get that?
Awesome. Thank you so much. So our final session of the year is going to be in just about 2 weeks on December 12th at 12 p.m. With CCEI's very own Rory McGloin and Jennifer Matthew. So goodbye and hello. We have some new things coming up in the new year. So stay tuned and check back with us next month and to see what we have planned for 2024.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.